I'm Shannon from Spot That Dog. This is the Spots of Wisdom podcast.
Hi, I'm Jade and I run That Dog based in North Wales.
So today we have two little subjects for you. We are going to discuss neutering, spaying, chemical castration, and a nice one, which may probably get us going in a bit of a rant. Owners acknowledging their fault or their play in their dog's behaviour. I like this one.
Yes.
So for me, I mean, we both got males, so it is what it is. We got two big dogs each. Woody is a 7-year-old neutered male.
Mhm.
Bucky is a 11-month-old unneutered male.
Okay.
Woody was castrated fully at 5 years old.
Yeah.
So we tried the chemical castration. I think we did 6 months. But for me, and I don't know how you're finding yours, but the 6 month actually lasted a year. So Woody's,
That's what I found with mine.
yeah. So his chemical castration didn't wear off until we got to about a year old. And as we said in the previous podcast, with the end of a chemical castration, it comes with all sorts of lovely surprises and changes in behaviours. For me, Woody always scent marked. That was nothing different. However, he never humped, ever. Coming off the chemical castration, he then started to hump all of his friends, which obviously is not always down to hormones. We all know that, or we should all know that humping can be down to an array of things. It can be hormones, it can be overexcitement, it can be stress, it can be a lot of stuff. However, it was very clear that this was all down to the surge of his chemical castration wearing off. So for me, I didn't want that anymore. This was all before I became a trainer, but still did enough research to figure it out. And for me, I didn't want a dog who's going to go out there and piss other dogs off by trying to hump them. So we did get him fully neutered.
Mhm.
And it did resolve the issue. Obviously, this isn't me pushing neutering
Yeah.
to stop any humping. It was just, in my experience in that point, it worked for us. However, for Bucky, I am not set on whether I'll be neutering him or not yet. It all depends on what we want to do. So like we said in the first episode, he is a KC bred dog. He's got good bloodlines. We're looking into showing him, which he does have an endorsement, so he can't be bred at the minute.
Yep.
Depending on his show statistics and his behavior and his temperament, etc., then it may be something we look into studying him out at some point. I wouldn't personally, if I had a female, I wouldn't want pups. That's too much responsibility for me. However, if I know he's a really good dog and I can stud him out and get a pup for it, I wouldn't do it for the money. I want an offspring, if that makes sense. That's just personal preference. I may do if it comes to he's actually really hormonal as he gets older and his behavior struggles because of that, then I will get him neutered. Other than that, if we have no problems, I'm not going to neuter him because I don't need to put him through the operation if he's not displaying any problematic behaviors. We're quite lucky in that we actually deal with a lot of unneutered males, and none of the ones we work with have caused any problems. Or like, you see a lot of people say that, oh, my dog gets attacked because he's an unneutered male. Thankfully, around here, not as much of a case. I've not experienced it myself.
Yeah, it's funny how similar both of our dogs are, like in that respect.
Yeah.
So
We've had very similar experiences.
So I didn't drive when I first got Sherlock. So we were very limited to where we went and the walks we went on and how far I took him. So it wasn't until I started driving, which was when he was about 3.5, I think it was, that taking him to all these new environments, I started spotting those signs of, the excess marking,
Yeah.
the the drooling constantly when we were on a walk, the fact that he wouldn't eat when we were on a walk, and like I'd stop at the shop and buy freshly cooked chicken,
Yeah.
and he was, I do not want this. You could just see his hormones in his eyes. He was just like, no, I have one job to do, and it's not eat this chicken.
This is really
Um, yeah, go
undog
on.
related. It is
Yeah,
dog related, but undog related. Do you find you've got lazier since you've learned how to drive?
yes,
Me too.
100%,
Because
100%.
I used to spend hours at the stables when I couldn't drive.
Yeah,
I'm lucky if I spend an hour there now.
yeah,
Same with
100%.
Woody. I used to be road walked every day without fail.
Yeah.
He
Mhm.
used to probably go to the field every day in the summer. I learned how to drive, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't. I'm too lazy now.
Yeah, I used to walk him everywhere. We'd used to go, like I'd have Fridays off and we'd go for like hours around the local fields and we'd
Yeah,
road walk and do all of it. Now, if I've got a couple of hours free, I'm like, you know what? I'll just drive to the field and let you run
yeah,
around the field.
yeah,
Really bad.
yeah.
But I
Anyway,
remember there was a point
going back to what you
I
were
was like,
saying.
I couldn't decide whether I wanted to neuter him, whether I wanted to chemically castrate him, whether I wanted, because there's this stigma, like we talked about before. If you're a trainer, you should have a perfect dog,
Yeah,
right? And the fact that my dog is entire, sorry,
yeah,
and he goes outside and I can't get him to work because he has one thing on his mind.
yeah,
In my head, I failed as a trainer because my dog should be able to do that. So there's this stigma
yeah,
about it. I was trying to work out what to do, and I remember taking him to a brand new place, and I just looked at him and I saw this level of stress that I'd never really seen before. His
yeah,
eyes were red. He was constantly scanning. He was paying attention to me, but he wasn't really there. And I just thought, you know what? You're not enjoying this.
yeah,
I've brought you out to this place and you're not enjoying it, and that's not fair. So I booked him in for a chemical castration. I went for the 6 month one, same as you did.
yeah,
We had that done, I think it was the beginning of August.
yeah,
And everyone pre-warns you that when you have a chemical castration, those first few weeks, your dog is going to be a nightmare. I'd mentally prepared for that. I
yeah.
was like, okay, I can deal with that. That's fine. He wasn't any different, in all
No,
honesty. We had a few extra
yeah,
zoomies. He'd be like, oh, I'm really excited, need a zoom. Didn't see much else, but I want to say within 2 weeks, the difference was amazing
yeah,
already. So the weeing was less. He didn't drool on a walk anymore. Suddenly, we were going out, but he didn't care what was going on. He wanted me instead.
yeah,
And he'd be like, oh, work with me, work with me.
yeah,
And it was amazing. And then I think it must have been this August. We went to do a trick show. And we do so many trick shows. He knows the drill. He knows what he's doing. He ignores all the dogs, all the people, and he gets on with it. And I got him out at this trick show and I couldn't get him to do anything. And as a dog trainer, it was the most
yeah,
embarrassing moment of my life. People had crowded around to see my dog and he wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't do any of the tricks that we'd learned. He just sat there. And I was like, right, okay. And I think at that point, I messaged you and somebody else. And I was like, what's going on with my dog? And it wasn't until then I realized that when they come off the
yeah,
chemical castration, they get that surge in
yeah,
hormones and you essentially a teenager all
yeah,
over again. But like you mentioned with yours, I had all these problem behaviors that I'd never had before.
yeah.
Sherlock's never humped anything in his
No,
life. Suddenly he comes off the chemical castration 3 weeks before I get Kevin. So
yeah,
really set that success. And he's as hormonal as anything. We're humping cushions. We went out with my friend's dog and he's trying to hump my friend's dog that he's
yeah,
met so many times before. And I was like, oh my God, this is horrendous. This is a nightmare. So then I'm like, right, well, I'll book him in to be neutered. So that
yeah,
was what I was going to do. And then you over research, don't you? I get into the
yeah,
habit of Googling too much. And I read something that said if you chemically castrate them, it's something to do with systems in the body. But essentially what happens is it's better for their joints if you can get away with continuously chemically castrating them
yeah,
rather than neutering them.
yeah. And
Apparently, that's
obviously,
the latest research.
it's hard,
Apparently.
isn't it? Because there's different problems with all of that because the chemical castrations aren't cheap. Like you're still
No,
like £180 or
I
something
pay
every time.
£180 every time. Now, luckily, I say luckily, I found that the first one we had lasted us bang on 12
Yeah.
months. And the vets thought I was arguing with them. They're like, no, it was definitely the 6 month version. I was like, I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah, but you're
I'm
just
just
telling
saying
us your
for
experience.
my dog, yeah, his lasted 12 months. So I'm looking at £180 a
Yeah.
year to keep up that chemical castration.
And
Now bear in
as
mind I have two dogs.
as far as
So if
I'm
I
aware, it's like an
yeah,
implant, isn't it? It's not an injection. So it's like
no,
what the
it's a little
girls have, yeah.
implant. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so it will last a bit longer. And it was just for me, paying that 180 like £80 every 6 months or whatever, it isn't an option. Like I've got a lot of animals. I can't afford to keep doing that, especially now two dogs every 6 months. So it was not for me. My doubts in it, or the fully castrating, is the trauma that me and Woody have got from him losing his tail. So obviously I don't want to really put him under another operation.
Yeah,
However, those discussions were had with my vet, and it was one of those, he didn't get taken into the vet until he was due to be operated on in like 5 minutes. So it was go in, immediate operation. As soon as he come round, I'd pick him back up again. And
yeah,
he had all of the extra bits. So you get the bloods taken, he gets on a
yeah,
drip, like everything that he could have for his neutering, just to
yeah.
make sure everything went fine. And that's only because, like I said, like we had so much trauma from him losing his tail. He had two operations. He was in and out as a vet for 4 months. Like for me, it was just that backup that everything.
See, that's
Fine.
why right now he doesn't have the chemical, he's not chemically castrated, it's
Yeah,
run out. I'm in that limbo stage of deciding whether I book him in for another round of that or whether I
yeah,
book him in for neutering. But exactly as you've just said, he had multiple operations for stones.
yeah,
He doesn't like pets. He
yeah,
doesn't like being there. It stresses him out. So again, I'm then torn between, do I keep paying to avoid him having that
yeah.
experience, or do I just go, you know what? You're gonna have to have one more bad experience and then it's done.
And that's the thing for
It's
me, like it kind of defeats half that, because if you've got to keep going every 6 months just for him to have this injection, that's every 6 months he's having a vet experience. Whereas you can have a one and hopefully one and done surgery and then not have to fuss. But then equally, like it's only because I only neutered him because of the chemical castration, because of the side effects that came out after. If I didn't bother chemically castrating him, he would probably still be entire,
yeah,
because we had no problems. Yes, he's reactive, but it's not down to hormones. So we had no problems from like puppy to 18 months.
yeah.
It wasn't any problems until we hit lockdown, which was when he was about 18 months old.
That's kind of what I'm hoping. Probably one of the reasons I've held out a little bit is we've come out of that hormone surge,
Yeah.
and I think it's coming back down. I
Yeah.
think our levels
It
are
would be
leveling out.
interesting to see if you left it, to see
It's
if he did
what,
return to normal. And to be
yeah,
honest with you, if he returned to normal, I wouldn't bother doing it.
what I'm kind of hoping. I'm hoping because it was really bad when I first got Kevin. That kind of, but then it was one thing after another. So we
Yeah.
got Kevin. He was hormonal. And then obviously changing routine with Kevin, etc., etc. Then there was kennel cough, so they had like 3 weeks of not doing much at
Yeah.
all, in all honesty. And then we've had stuff going on with family, etc. So it's stressful, we're out of
Yeah.
routine. It's one thing after another. He's not had time for those levels to
Yeah.
come down. So part of me is just wondering as well if I leave it, because I'm already seeing an improvement. If I
Yeah.
leave, is he just going to come back and be the same dog he was
Yeah.
before?
It's
I
worth
don't.
a try, I think, because it isn't going to do you any harm. If anything, all it means is that the chemicals have gone out of his body, and then you can decide at a later point to
I think knowing
operate.
that for a information point of view is really
Yeah.
good. So if a client comes to me and goes, look,
Yeah.
I've had a chemical castration, I don't want to neuter my dog, it's not
Yeah.
working for me. I can go, well, you know what, in my
What's
experience, this happens.
your opinion? Because you see it all too many times where people are recommending chemical castration first, but
Yeah.
like for early on. Like I don't agree with any castration up until 18 months, 2 years old. Like
I would
Especially as
agree
we said,
completely,
like with bigger dogs, they need that time
100%.
grow. And what
Same.
people don't seem to understand is that actually the chemical castration can still stunt their growth.
Yes. So I see too many people, as I'm sure you do, especially as you're going through it, that have a large breed teenage boy dog that starts just displaying teenage boy behavior, and they go, oh my God, what is this? I need to fix this right now. And they assume that a chemical castration or a neutering will fix
Yeah,
everything. And it doesn't. So I would agree in that the teenage stage is horrible,
yeah,
but you have to ride it out for
yeah,
the sake of, by all means, if you get to the other side and they're two, three, whatever, and you're having issues and you're going, you know what, these issues are down to hormones,
yeah.
absolutely go for it. If your dog is healthy and it works for you, go for it. But
And
don't be one of these people, because I've been there with my older Dalmatian when the vets would advise you got them neutered as soon as
yeah,
possible. My older Dalmatian was neutered. Bear in mind, he was a massive Dalmatian. He was neutered at 6 months of
yeah.
age.
And it's one of the, like,
Now,
our elderly dog we've got out there who's 16 years old. He was neutered at 6 months old. And actually, he's a really good dog. He's not got, never had any behavioral issues or anything like that. And while there's still that argument that if you neuter them early, that you may not have any behavioral issues, you also then risk everything else. So I mean, he's 16, but he is very arthritic. And if we didn't neuter him so early, or if we didn't neuter him, would he be better? Would he
I
not
had the
have,
same
yeah,
thing.
would he not have those arthritic changes? Like, people don't understand actually what happens by taking out those hormones and how important.
Mine got muted by vet recommendation because he was humping. Now, I wasn't a trainer at the time. I
Yeah,
was like 60. But looking back at it now, it was a sign of probably a lack of mental stimulation,
yeah,
probably the
yeah.
wrong food,
And
probably
he does.
that sugar
Plus
rush.
he humps out of hope, like,
Yeah,
not hyperness, but like overexcitement and stuff. So if I take Woody out
yeah,
for a walk and I come back and let Bucky out, then Bucky's like, "Oh my God, Woody! Oh my God! Oh my God!" And then he'll try and hump him, but he
yeah.
won't. He doesn't full go. He'll mount, and then I tell him to get off, and he
Kind
gets
of
off.
a paw. You
Yeah,
see the paw go and you go,
yeah,
right, okay. But yeah, but the first mention of humping, and the vet was like, right, he needs
get him off.
neutering.
Yeah,
But then what happened was he got neutered in that very sensitive stage of their life
yeah,
anyway. He then got bitten by a dog as
yeah,
well. So he turned into an anxious, reactive,
yeah,
bit of a mess, really. He didn't really like
yeah,
dogs. He didn't have anything to do with them. He was quite, oh, that's new. I'm not sure about that.
yeah,
And then again, he got to the point where his joints and his arthritis were horrible. He was
yeah,
walking around like crouching
yeah.
permanently. And you just think, I mean, you don't know because there's no
No,
way to test, but you just think if he hadn't have been neutered at 6 months
yeah,
and he would
bit of
have been
change.
allowed to fully develop,
Yeah,
would that have been the same or
yeah.
would it have been
And that's
different?
the thing. Charlie's been arthritic since he was about 10. So that's 6 years that he's been fairly arthritic. And it's like with Woody, so he was reactive before we neutered him. So
Okay. Yeah.
for me, that was why I changed. I know that technically goes against all, but I got me reasons. So we never thought his reactivity was down to hormones. The vet didn't think so. So my vet at the time was really good. She didn't think it was down to hormones. I was with my behaviorist. We discussed it with him.
Yeah.
So we tried the chemical castration to see if his behavior got any better. Because if it
Yeah.
was all down to hormones, then technically the chemical castration would have wiped out his reactivity, or it would have made it worse. You would have seen either way. And thankfully for us, it didn't make any difference. So
Okay.
to me, that's kind of like, right, that means that it isn't down to his hormones. It is just his
Yeah.
general, like, something, whatever's wrong.
Yeah.
He's, it's mostly fear based, but is kind of pushing into frustration.
Okay.
Um, so obviously the castration made no difference until it wore off, and that was one of those things for us. So that was why then we moved on to the full castration, because it actually, we knew it wasn't going to make any difference.
Yeah.
Like, it was just going to stop the humping that came from it.
100%. Yeah. I see too many people with reactive dogs that are either showing reactivity due to fear,
Yeah.
or that they're right on that line if they could become reactive,
Yeah.
but right now they're not. And people go and get them neutered.
Yeah.
And then they end up with a dog that is now displaying reactivity that wasn't before.
Yeah.
One of my pet hates is when people go and get their dog neutered or chemically castrated or whatever else so that they can fit into a daycare.
Yeah.
It drives me up the wall.
I mean, I get it. I've worked in a daycare, so I get it from the daycare's perspective. They can't risk having multiple neutered males
Yeah.
in a group because the one I worked in, there was, I think the council limits 8 or something like that for
Yeah.
higher standard.
Mhm.
So you can't have 4, you can, but the likelihood if they're going
Have
to
to be very
daycare, if they're
picky
going
and
to daycare, they're
choosy.
probably not trained or like not as well trained as we would
And
expect.
I see too many posts in various Facebook groups that will shall remain nameless that are like, my dog goes to daycare and he humps constantly and he's too full on with all the dogs. And the daycare have said he can only go back if he's
Yeah.
neutered. And they just go and book their dog in to be
Yeah.
neutered.
And we had a 10-month-old limit. So the minute they hit 10-month-old, they'd either have to be neutered or they couldn't come back in. And while it wasn't pushed on the client, we weren't like, you have to get him neutered. It
Yeah.
was just simply, this is our rule.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you want your dog to come back to daycare, he needs to be either neutered or chemically castrated. We allowed the chemical castration.
Okay.
Again, I worked there, it wasn't my daycare. So it was just one of those rules. But I think as like we originally looked at taking Woody, so that was before I even worked there again. So I didn't work there until Woody was 4 or
Yeah.
5. And before I did look into doing it, but then I couldn't do it because he wasn't neutered, and I also wasn't prepared to neuter him, so it didn't matter. But there's plenty of different like ways around it. So get a dog sitter, someone's come in, let them out
Yes.
for a wee, do whatever, get a dog walker, get a group walker. Like there are some group walkers who will take out entire males. Like I think it for me, knowing who I know and knowing what I know, actually if you've got a dog walker who will take an entire male, they probably know what they're doing.
My local
Probably
dog,
being the main word.
yeah, no, my local dog walker that I recommend over all the other local dog walkers has entire males herself,
Yeah.
will take entire males, and everyone is very well managed.
Yeah.
And so there are options. But I just, again, it's not a one size fits all thing, isn't it?
No.
And I think
And
thinking about getting your dog neutered, do it for the right reason, not
yeah.
just because you want to send them to the daycare.
And that's the big thing now. Like obviously people will always go off what their vet says.
Yeah.
Vets aren't, unless you've got a veterinary behaviourist, they're not really fully trained in dog behaviour,
Yeah.
which then creates an issue. So if there are medical reasons your dog's, I know we're talking all about neutering, but obviously spaying as well with females. I'm more inclined to get a female spayed than I
100%.
am to get a dog neutered.
100%.
So I've got to choose my words. I've known people who their dogs have had phantom pregnancy after phantom pregnancy after phantom pregnancy. And for me, that's not fair on the bitch
Not
because
fair.
the way I try to explain it to people is obviously not directly the same. And pre-warning for anyone, this might be a bit soft subject. For me, a phantom pregnancy is essentially like a miscarriage.
Yeah.
So for a dog, they're expecting to have a baby, but there's no baby there. And
Yeah.
actually, it stresses them out. It stresses them out a lot. And
Look, I've
keep
seen, yeah,
yeah, to keep putting them through it and not spay them, it's a lot. It's a lot of stress wise, and actually, it can change their behavior. And then you can get a nervous reactive girl because actually they've just been pushed through all these hormones all the time. And actually I find that Dalmatians are quite prone to phantom pregnancies. Like I don't know why, but it's just one of those things. So for me, as long as the bitch had grown fully,
Yeah.
I'd be spaying. I don't need to breed. I've
Yeah.
had kittens. I don't want puppies.
Yeah.
I'd rather go out and, like I said, either stud Bucky and get the puppy, or I'll go and buy a puppy. I don't I don't want a litter of puppies myself. It's too stressful. There's
Hard
too
work.
much to come with it. It's hard work, like I said.
And if it goes wrong,
Yeah, there's a lot. It's a
um,
lot. We've had kittens. It's a lot harder than kittens. I know that for sure. Even kittens was hard work. But it's one of those, like, I would always personally spay a bitch.
yeah,
Males is different. Obviously, with males, thankfully, if they do get testicular cancer or anything, you can just chop them off and hopefully that's it, job done. Whereas with the females, because of their biology, like if they get it in the wherever, it goes up into where all the rest of the organs. Like it's not
yeah,
everything's linked.
everything is, yeah, you've got,
Yeah,
so I would be the same. So if I had girls, which I don't, I would totally go with the spaying option,
yeah,
100%. Boys is very much, which is why I hate the question, should I neuter? People come into classes and go, would you get him neutered? And I'm like, well, that's actually not my decision to
no,
make. I can give you the pros, I can give you the cons, I can send you stuff to read,
yeah,
but you've got to decide based on your own dog, because what fits your dog isn't going to fit my dog. And so I can't give a blanket answer.
no, I completely agree. Um, but yeah. That's my standpoint on there. We are going to have to move on to our last
Yeah.
subject. So
Yeah.
the next one is, so wording it right again. Owners either acknowledging their faults or acknowledging their part in their dog's behavior. So for me,
Mhm.
I say, while we don't know Woody's direct relation or reason for his reactivity, I can
Yeah.
sit there and say, right, so we had lockdown. I changed our routine through lockdown.
Yeah.
So we went from road walking like through the winter every night, or field walking every summer,
Mhm.
um, to go into the stables twice a day. And while that sounds better,
Yeah.
he only seen two dogs a day.
Yeah.
So he went from seeing all the dogs on the roads or all the dogs in the field. And while he wouldn't necessarily socialize with them, or he didn't necessarily go and play with other dogs, he's seen other dogs. Throughout lockdown, he only ever seen the two dogs, maybe three dogs that were at the stables. So he now is only
Yeah.
new dogs he has a problem with. So it's that fear of new dogs, that frustration of wanting to play with a new dog, but not knowing what to do because he missed
Yeah.
that three
Conflicted.
months of socialization. So for me, if I had carried on walking him as I had done beforehand, then maybe he wouldn't have been reactive. So for me,
Yeah.
that's me acknowledging my part
Yeah.
in his reactivity. And with Bucky, like, I mean, like I said, he is a hormonal adolescence.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't worked so much and I was training a bit harder, would he be more easy to deal with now than the hormonal mess he is?
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that completely. I think as well, yeah, acknowledging it, but also not living in denial with it either.
Yeah,
So, like, again, it's wording things nicely. I have people that have big breeds of dog,
yeah,
which will remain nameless, but they have big breeds of dog, and their dogs have behavioral issues, so reactivity, for example, and they may have contributed slightly in some of their actions, but they then just go, oh, well, he's this breed of dog,
yeah,
so that's normal for him.
yeah. I hate that.
And I'm like, yes, he is a big breed of dog. Yes, it's going to look, whatever he does is going to
Yeah,
look worse. He is a big breed of dog, but you then just can't go, well, that's the way he is now.
yeah.
So that's it.
And actually, for us, so obviously, like we said, we're a tri-bred company, walkers, sitters, training. Our favorite clients are the ones that sit there and be like, "Oh, was he a dick today?" No, it
Yes.
wasn't. But I like the fact that you acknowledge that your dog is a dick sometimes. Like we
Yes.
do between the three of us who work for me, that oh, my dog's been an absolute hole today.
Yeah.
Like we prefer clients who admit their dog can be difficult
Yeah.
and actually either admit that their dog's difficult or admit their like where they've played their part in their
I get
dog's
it.
behavior.
They come in and their dog, I don't know, let's use lead walking because it's an easy example. They come in and their dog is not paying them a blind's bit of notice. He's like, I couldn't care less if you were here. I'm pulling on the lead, all the rest of it. And the owner will turn around and go, that's my fault. I've
Yeah,
not been training this
yeah,
week. They're like, I'm really sorry. I've been in hospital. I've done this. I've done that. I'm like, it's honestly
yeah,
fine. But I appreciate how you've
yeah,
acknowledged that you haven't done anything this
yeah.
week.
And so Bucky's brother, she won't mind me saying this, we're fairly close.
Yeah.
She's got what she's like us, so she's got one reactive dog, she got one non-reactive. Bucky's brother's non-reactive. And because of the freedom that we get with these two, because they're
Yeah.
non-reactive, she's like, I just let him off lead. So actually his lead walking's crap because
Yes.
all he wants to do is run and play and that. And she's like, I do need to start doing more lead walking and more
Yeah.
training because it is my fault because I have that freedom and I want that freedom for the dog. I've not focused on the lead walking because he's got the best recall in the world. And that's great. And like she's admitted her playing it, and I mean we speak every single day, so she gets the tips and stuff that I can give her because she's Bucky's brother's like mum and all that. But just being able to admit that on what there's nothing wrong with doing things wrong. If you can admit that you've done something wrong,
Yeah.
then
And then you
great.
can work on it.
Yeah,
Don't live in denial about it. Like, I
no,
mean, if you had a reactive dog, you could sit there and go, oh, I can't do this with them, and I can't do this with them, and I can't do this with them because they're reactive, and you just go, right, that's it, we can't do anything. Acknowledge it and then work on it.
yeah,
So Kevin's lead walking is terrible.
yeah,
Kevin's lead walking is terrible because I've just done exactly what you've
yeah,
just said. I have a dog that can hear me, which is a novelty
yeah,
to me. So we go here, there, and everywhere. I have my whistle, and we do loads of whistle
yeah,
recall. His recall's amazing.
yeah.
That's not to say in 6 months when he's a teenager, it'll still be amazing. It probably won't. But at the minute, his recall is
If
brilliant.
he's
So he's
anything like
going to
Bucky,
lead.
he's gonna go 180 and he's gonna have nothing. Bucky had the
100%.
perfect lead walking at one stage and perfect recall, and now I've got none.
I'm mentally prepared for it. I've texted all my clients with teenagers. And look, in 6 months' time, when I'm sat in a corner crying, I will need you to repay the favor of, when you
Yeah,
sat there texting them going, it will be fine, don't worry.
yeah.
Um,
And I
but yeah,
just think
that's that.
too many people just think that by admitting fault, it's a problem, or like we do have clients and ex-clients and stuff where they're easy to throw the blame, but aren't easy to take the blame. I'd much rather take the blame. Like, I'm human. At the end of the day, if my dog's gone and bloody like savage someone's arm, then it's probably my fault for letting the dog out the front door or something. Like, not the dog didn't get out. That's my fault because I didn't lock the front door. Like,
Yeah. But then on the other end of the spectrum, I've got people that come to me and well, let's do rescue. So I've got one in particular in my head. Rescue dog, come from pretty poor situation, not seen anything, no socialization, terrified of people, every issue you can think of. And she's worked blooming hard with him. He's great. But she still comes in and blames herself for every single issue that
yeah,
dog has. And she's had no influence in it in
yeah.
any way, shape, or form.
But at least you've got a client there who's aware.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
while she may not have made the issues that the dog was experiencing at the minute, she is aware of what she could do and what she could cause. I think the
Mhm.
problem you get is when you get the owners that either their dog's perfect or they're perfect, and whatever is being done is actually your fault. Because I mean, I'm sure you would have had clients as well, like training clients who you'll give them all the advice, but because they think better or they think different or their dog won't do it, then actually you're the one who's in the wrong, not them because they think differently. And it's fine. You can think differently. That's not a problem.
There's nothing more frustrating, and I've got one in my head, and I can't talk about it, but there's one in my head, and you take the dog on a training walk or whatever it is that you're doing, and you drill whatever that dog needs work on for that 1 hour to the point you have made
Yeah.
amazing progress, and you're really pleased with the dog, and you're like, oh my God, this has been amazing. And you take your videos and you write up the homework and you send it to the owner, and you check in with them 3 days later and they go, oh, I've not had time yet.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's fine. I'll message you in a week. And you send them check in after check in after check
Yeah.
in. And they go, oh, I've not had time to do any of it. And then you'll see them posting going, oh, I need a trainer for my dog because this isn't working. And I'm like, you need to take some responsibility
Yeah.
for the fact that
And
it's
if
not
you could be
going
like,
to
if
work.
you actually just messaged me, then we could have come up with something else for you.
Yeah.
Like, not, it's fine. If you don't agree with the tactic that we've given you, that's not a
I'll
problem.
change the plan.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
fine. Yeah. But I never expect my clients to do an hour of training a day.
Yeah.
And I make that very clear to them.
Oh yeah,
But
I say that all the time.
yeah, I'm like, if you can't give me 5 minutes of your time a day to work on this, there's no point.
No. And I think people just seem, I think, I don't know if it's a generational thing. I'm 29,
Yeah.
so I'm in the days of MSN and
Yeah.
instant messenger. Like, my generation were very responsive, and I don't
Mhm.
know whether people have just got lazy or what, but communication nowadays is just shocking.
Yeah.
People don't seem to want to reply. People don't want to, like, even if you get leads and they're like, oh yeah, I'm interested in this, and you send them all the details and then you just never hear them ever.
Yeah.
For
And then
me,
they come back 6 months later going, oh, that problem I messaged you about's
yeah.
worse.
And I'm like, if you just messaged me and said, look, I can't afford it, or I don't know, I'm not sure about that, or I
Okay.
don't, I had one person message me and say, I'm looking for some dog training for my dog. We're open to all methods.
Okay.
What do you do? And I was like, I'm a rewards-based trainer, this, that, and the other. I didn't hear a response.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, well, if reward-based, after you just said open to all methods, isn't what you wanted, then you can just tell me, because at the end of the day, if we don't match, I can give you a different trainer.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be a waste of time if I don't gel with the person and they don't gel with me, or they want to use different methods to me. None of us are going to get anywhere. It's a
Yeah.
waste of time for
And
both
I
of
think
us.
it's a big thing, like, people just assume that, or people forget the human side of you. They just think, right, this, I pay this person to do a job,
Yeah.
so they must do it perfectly. They forget that actually we've got 50, 60, 70 different
And it can
clients.
be, this is for a whole other topic, but it can be so blooming draining. And I love my job to bits. I wouldn't do anything else. But when you're having one of those days where everyone has had a terrible day with their dog and you get home and you have 20, 30 WhatsApp messages from people going,
Yeah,
oh my God, my dog has driven me mad today.
yeah,
You're then providing emotional support for 20 to
yeah,
30 different people a
yeah.
day.
And then you
It's
find that
not
people
expressed.
then get pissy at you when you make small mistakes. And they seem to forget that actually, no, you are just a person who is running
Yes.
this massive business. Because actually, we've got hundreds of clients across the board. We've got hundreds that I've got to try and deal with. Got to do invoice. I did a post on it the other day. I've got to do invoices. I've got to do the diary. I've got to do
Yeah.
all of my emails, all of my admin. On top of that, I've got to reply to all the
Your
customers.
social media
Yeah.
and your advertising.
And for
And
me, like, in general, my memory's not great unless I write things down.
yeah,
So if you've told me something, if you don't back that up with a message, that's not my fault,
yeah,
because you're one of 8, 9, 10 clients I've seen that day. If I'm working 9 till 4 dog
mhm,
walking, I'm
yeah,
then likely working 6 till 9 dog
yeah,
training.
yeah.
I ain't remembering what I said to June
I
down the
tell
road.
people in classes all the time, I've got 5 classes on a Saturday, back to back. If you've said to me in the class, oh, can you just send me some information on this? Or
Yeah,
do you have a lead type that you'd recommend or
yeah,
something? And I've told people I'll send them more information.
yeah,
I'm like, if you've not heard
yeah.
from
Chase
me
me.
in 24 hours, you need to message me
Yeah,
because I've forgotten. Because it's too much to remember otherwise.
yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And I think that's a big thing while we end this podcast for people, just to remember that your pet professional is still a person. They have their own lives, they have their own issues. We have good days and bad days like everyone else. So if their service hasn't been up to par, or you want something from them, then communicate. Because if you're not going to communicate with them and you're just going to fly off the handle, or you're going to expect them to do something that actually they're not even paid to do, you're not going to get it. So communication is a massive part of everything. I wouldn't employ someone and not give them all the information they need for a dog, or expect them to do things that I wouldn't do myself. So communication is key with the dog
Yeah.
toy. Communication is key when it comes to working with your pet professional.
Yeah.
Um,
You're a team, aren't you? You have to work as a
yeah,
team.
it's not like going to Tesco and just scanning your thing and putting it through the till and job done. Like it is, there's a lot of work that goes into all of it, and you are not their only client. You need to remember that. So they cannot
Take it,
cater for
yeah,
everything that you ask.
take it personally. And, you know, if we've worked for you with you for ages, we also, you know, probably care about your dog a little bit as
Yeah.
well. So, you know,
And we do, things do get taken personally, because it isn't that simple in the fact that, oh, yeah, right, we've got 40, 50 different clients, but we put our heart and soul into it. It's our business.
yeah. And when someone
So
messages me, I mean, I don't want them to not message me because that defeats the point. But if someone messages me going, oh my God, I've just had the worst walk of my life with my dog. He's barked, he's lunged, he's done this, he's done that. I'm going to take that personally. I'm going to go, oh, I've not got that to work this
yeah,
week. And yeah, so we take it personally as well. We go through it with you.
yeah, definitely. So with that, guys, that will be the end of today's podcast.
Yeah.
Leave us some comments on what you would like to hear from us, and we will plan it for some future podcasts. We are also going to be starting an agony aunt section on the end of every podcast. So leave comments. We
Yeah.
will reply. We will have a chat in regards to your issues you are facing. Like, follow, subscribe, share with your friends, and we will speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
See you later.